Loungin, son.
Welcome to episode 4 of Loungin. I'm your host this time, Mario. You got Ryan over here.
I've never heard you sound so enthusiastic in the entire time I've known you.
I talk about it when I ever host Comic Marauders. Sometimes I'll do that. I think
I know,
in
but
earlier episodes.
Well, I can't see your face. I just hear your voice.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
are we talking?
So thanks for throwing off the trail there.
Sorry.
So today we're talking about 90's image. So you got some interviews and some topics coming up that we're talking about. Image, yeah. Some creators, some big creators. I don't really want to spoil it because I don't know what things are lining up. So some interviews are coming up with certain creators that fit.
I'll tell you guys it's not Todd McFarlane, so don't get your fucking hopes up.
It's not,
Todd, if you happen to fucking find this video on YouTube, what's up, dude? Let's get that interview going.
Yeah.
All right.
Because we're big fans.
Huge fans.
We love
his Spawn.
We got your Kickstarter. We backed that up.
Yeah, dude, we got the fucking action figures, everything, bro. Come on, dog.
How many? I got like 5 number 1s.
Yeah. I can only imagine what you got.
Spider-Man 300 I got signed.
Spawn fanatic. All right.
Anyway, so because of that, we want to talk about 90's image, just because also for us it was a formative time in our comic, growing up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was later to the party than you were. I mean, I was 5. I was 5 in 92. So, and summer of 92. Okay, so I turned 6 right as Image was in the beginning, I guess you could say. But I didn't read it in the beginning. Like I've said before, Flash DC was my beginnings. I know you said 94 is when you hit up Image. So I was even older than that. I'm not ashamed to say dollar bin, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we were kids.
And I saw it, dude, and I was like, what is all this?
Yeah.
I grabbed everything, dude. I grabbed the first miniseries and the first 6 issues of Savage Dragon.
Nice.
Spawn.
Hell yeah.
Fucking Youngblood. Shadowhawk, fucking Wildcats, and Cyberforce, motherfucker. I bought all that shit, and I fucking loved it. And I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Maybe, the writing, no, it's not that great.
I mean, are all those books great? No.
No.
If we're being honest,
but
it's not.
Fuck, dude. They're fucking fun. It's like a guilty pleasure.
I think that's
you know
why it resonated so much with people our age, because we're roughly the same age. We were kids. You're literally 9 years old.
So that shit was dope.
In 96 or whatever.
Yeah.
So you don't, even though we talked about Vertigo, and that stuff was going on at the same time. But
right.
when we're 9 years old, you're not really worried about Sandman and what that means to comics. You're worried about dude, Spawn looks fucking dope.
That fucking cape.
That cape looks sick. He's got chains.
And then, dude,
And at the time too, I was, even though I was a kid, I was still he's black.
Yeah.
How often did you see that?
You gotta and then, dude, you can't forget. I don't care. Uncle Rob, bro. As they call him on the KFA channel. Uncle Rob, dude, Youngblood.
Uncle Rob.
That's what they call him, dude. You got the Todd father and you got Uncle Rob.
Yeah, Todd father.
So, I like that book. I don't care, dude, if it was written well. That shit was fun to look at. Yeah. And you cannot take anything away.
Well, and
like we talked about last week with coloring, they had top of the line coloring in the industry. They spent the money. And they started digital coloring before everybody else.
That was the big thing, was that everybody was getting paid more.
They got paid.
And so they were getting the best. Basically, they poached the best of the best that was available in the early and mid 90s.
Right.
To be on those books.
Oh, yeah, dude. They were putting out some, the quality of the paper, the fucking coloring.
Yeah.
The only thing that was lacking a little bit was the writing. You know what I'm saying? But you can't deny that the books were pretty to look at. They were made well. So you can't deny, dude, that those books were they were fun. And the energy that came out of them was the 7 creators minus Will Portasio, because he had some family issues which kept him from releasing Wetworks, which should have been a launch book.
Yeah.
But dude, they were fucking unbound, dude. They fucking threw the chains off from Marvel and DC. And they were doing their own shit. And you can see the excitement. There's excitement in all those books. Yeah. And then, you can't forget, dedicated to Jack Kirby. Each issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or brought to you by. I can't remember exactly the wording. But, they went to Jack. One of the interviews I talked about, he told me the story behind it. And how they got Jack's
blessing.
Yeah. And that's, I'm not going to lie, dude. A little fucking, I ain't no bitch, but like little water was getting, there was some dust in my eye, dude, when he was telling me. I was like, that's a great story, and I'm so glad I got to hear that. You know, I don't know that that's been said anywhere. Maybe it has, but I didn't hear it.
I haven't heard that.
I didn't hear it, and I loved it. You know what I'm saying? And
because I've heard a variety of them tell the origin of how Image happened, and I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, so Jack Kirby is arguably one of the greatest artists that the comic medium has ever seen.
He's also one of the most legendary names in comics.
The fertile imagination that man had.
Not anymore, nowadays, but historically.
No, I'm saying that he had back then. Unmatched. Yeah. The creative output that he did. I mean, the dude was a machine, you know? And, the art style is very, very different than what we see today, right? The type of art style. But
a lot's changed
you
since
can't,
then.
like, the storytelling that he had, I mean, and they were obviously trying to make a statement by saying dedicated to Jack Kirby, or not dedicated, or like in honor, or brought to you by, right? Because all the Marvel was brought to you by Stan Lee. And that has always been a major issue amongst, I've watched countless videos. Yeah. One of them being with Alan Moore, where he talks about, how Jack Kirby didn't get the recognition that he deserved. And so it was cool to see those guys. I mean, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, out of them, were the biggest artists in comics at the time. They were selling millions of copies of their comics, X-Force, Spider-Man, and X-Men. So to have them show him that love, like, that was a beautiful thing, dude, And, I mean, what were some of your favorites? I mean, Savage Dragon was always one of my favorites. And I'll still like, I take breaks with Savage Dragon, but I always go back to it, dude. I like the character. I like that Eric Larson aged the character in real time, and like, he's about to fucking drop issue fucking 250. He's the only dude that wrote and drew the entire series.
Because Todd hasn't been.
Except for issue 13. The creators, they switch books for a month. So what does Eric Larson do? He goes back and redraws issue 13 so he can have consecutive issues. I like that. I like that,
because Spawn's been around, obviously, with over 300 issues, but he hasn't been.
No, Todd's always had a hand in it.
He's always had a hand in it, but he hasn't been the main guy on it.
He hasn't been the main writer the whole time. He sure as fuck hasn't been the main artist.
For a long time.
Yeah, too long.
But yeah, Spawn is the one, because that's how I got into it, because of Todd McFarlane. So the first book I ever bought with, like, I had, like, I'm going to buy a book because I have, like, $8.
Right.
Was Spider-Man 13. The one without an adjective.
Right. Yeah, I know. And that was the one before the last.
No, I think it ended with 16. So it was 14, 15 he was off, and 16 he came up to the last issue.
Okay.
But it was close to the end. That was the first book I ever got, and that's when I first recognized the name McFarlane. And so then when I realized, and then I saw Spawn was a thing, and McFarlane, my 8-year-old brain just connected. I was like, what?
Yeah.
This is a thing that's happening right now? So I got to check this out.
Yeah.
And then I was just all into Spawn. Because in 94, I think that's when the action figures came out. Yeah, that Spawn, the first series, and I got like a bunch of them.
Also the beginning of the fucking crash of the comic industry, but we'll talk about that on our episode.
But when I was 9, I didn't necessarily know what was happening. I was just like, Spawn's cool. And so even though the comic industry had been crashing,
right,
McFarlane was full steam ahead.
Oh, he was smart, very smart businessman. You can't forget about that aspect.
I think he's definitely the most successful out of the bunch. That was smart enough to diversify. He diversified fast.
Well, let's say this though too. He's smart enough. You said smart. Now, it's not necessarily that he was smart enough, because he was smart to do what he did, but that's because that's the route he wanted to go.
Yeah.
Some of the other creators, like, they wanted to make comics.
But that's you could also argue he could have seen the writing on the wall of, if I put all my eggs in the basket of comics and it crashes.
Well, he also retired.
Who?
McFarlane retired prior to Spawn.
Yeah.
He got called back in. Like, he left Spider-Man and he was retired from comics. He was not planning to do comics.
Yeah.
At least for a little while. And then fucking, Liefeld.
Yeah, but he immediately started diversifying.
Yeah.
Because he stopped seeing it as I am a comic book artist and kind of created a brand.
Right.
Which is, because in 92 happens. 94, he already got action figures.
Right.
97, he's got a movie.
Mm-hmm. And you can't forget the cartoon show on HBO.
And the HBO animated series. And so nobody else was doing anything like that. They were doing maybe a couple other things.
Right.
but he went fucking hard.
And he didn't have his own the house, like how they had Wildstorm and they had Homage,
so
and they had Top Cow
for anybody that doesn't
and Extreme.
Know, so in the very beginning of 92, they weren't publishing the books themselves.
No, Malibu,
because they didn't really have the resources to do that.
Right.
They had the creative talent, but they didn't have all the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it was structured was that you had Image Comics, but under Image you had the different imprints, houses, whatever you want to call them, because the whole idea was giving the creators freedom.
Right, because
they didn't want Venom to happen again.
Right, because Image didn't own anything.
Right.
Each creator did.
Correct.
So, like, they each
Which is why we talked about Eric Larson doing all the stuff, because Eric Larson's a Savage Dragon. Todd McFarlane owns Spawn.
Right.
Not Image. Todd McFarlane.
Exactly.
And McFarlane Company, whatever company he has.
Right. So you had Rob Liefeld with Extreme.
Yeah.
In the beginning, Mark Silvestri was with Jim Lee in Homage. And then eventually Silvestri breaks off to Top Cow.
Yeah.
And then you had Eric Larson was by himself. Jim Valentino had Shadowline.
Yeah. Yeah,
and then Spawn.
I thought the emblem was the coolest.
Yeah, and then Spawn. I mean, McFarlane it was McFarlane. He just had, like, same with Savage Dragon. He just had the Image eye on it. Yeah. He didn't fucking make his own studio.
Right.
Studio is what they called them. They each had their own studio. But yeah, like, I can only imagine, like, the excitement of being a part of that in the beginning. Like, like I can't, like, part of me wishes I was like a teenager or even in my 20s when they did that and was paying attention to the industry to fucking see, like, really the ramifications.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was going
happened.
at. That's kind of where I was getting to, is that we were too young to really get what was happening, because I didn't know there was a comic crash.
No.
Because I didn't notice, because I was
looking
at Spawn and stuff.
Well, we're just reading comics.
All that seemed to be going full steam ahead. So, and then in the late 90s, I was still picking out, like, Captain America by Mark Waid and Ron Guardian and stuff. So,
yeah, because the comics never stopped.
The comics still at the store.
So, as a kid, you don't know.
Yeah.
The comics are still coming out. Now, you also, like, as a kid, like, I don't know, I didn't. You don't notice that, like, DC's reacting to Image and stuff with their choices, like Superman dying, Batman's back breaking, and then you got Azrael fucking with his fucking big ass armor. Like, that was a response.
Spikes and
spike
fucking hands and shit.
That was a response to fucking what they were doing at Image. You know what I'm saying?
X-Men #1 came out, and that sold how many million?
I think 5 million.
5 million, 4.5 to 5 million copies.
Right.
But then Spawn comes out and it sells 5 or 6 million, something like that, or maybe it was reversed. I don't remember.
No, I don't think Spawn outsold.
I thought it did.
It didn't. I don't think it, because X-Men #1 is still the highest selling comic book. Well,
so it was like, it might have been 6 million, and then it was like 3.5 million for Spawn.
Either way, Spawn.
But the point is that these numbers were hitting hard, and they were getting 80% of the sales, and now you didn't have a publisher taking more pieces of the pie.
No.
So McFarlane,
fucking money's coming home to daddy. You know what I mean? Like,
some of the conversations that we had about how fucking ridiculous it was, how much money they were making in, like, 93.
You've heard that story, right? Liefeld fucking lured Stephen Platt, who was on Moon Knight back then, to Extreme Studios.
Yeah.
He bought him a fucking Lamborghini, dude.
Yeah.
Are you shitting me? And it's nothing, dude. Like, I'm gonna just buy him a Lamborghini. Fucking he builds this fucking Youngblood ship.
Yeah.
And he brings to San Diego Comic-Con. I was like, what in the fuck? Like, just like,
I think
they didn't even know what to do.
They had a Spawnmobile, like a real one.
They didn't know what to do with the money. They had so much, and the person that was really smart with it, like you said, at least outwardly, because we don't know behind the scenes of what Valentino and the rest of them did, but, is McFarlane, investing it into other aspects of businesses. Liefeld
kept going.
But Liefeld was young as fuck. He was the youngest one of the bunch. Yeah. And, if I was his age and I had that kind of money, I'd probably do the same exact fucking things he did. I'd build myself a fucking...
ships and
cruises. I'd build myself a ship.
Just chilling.
Kidding me? I'd fucking build a ship, and back then I was young, smoking weed, I'd probably blaze it up.
That's something I've heard in the interviews, is that they had a hard time getting work done.
Yeah.
Because you poach someone. You can take somebody from Marvel or DC that's like, we want to get the team over here. We're going to get this creator over here. We're going to give you a shit ton of money. Right. You get X amount of sales. And then they start seeing those checks come in. And then but now you got to sit down and draw again for 3 weeks straight.
I got something for you. And you know what the problem is? Brings me back to something else. No fucking editors fucking watching over them. There was nobody to corral this talent. They were loosed on the world. And they just were doing whatever they wanted.
That continued to the 2000s, because I guess we mentioned, it wasn't. There was no team necessarily that said you had to do. The whole point was we don't want that.
Right.
Which was an experiment, and that continued on because I know Capullo talks about how he wasn't trying to blame him. He wasn't trying to say like I blame Todd McFarlane for this, but he had some issues with alcohol when he was younger, and he kind of talks about how it's Greg Capullo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he talks about how because
moving my hat
he was
around,
just
sorry.
he was kind of let loose and off the rails with the way that McFarlane kind of managed him. He kind of always counted on him to give him money for fucking a decade because he was on Spawn for a decade.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know any of
So
that. It's kind of
and Capullo wasn't saying it like I blame Todd.
No,
but
but
he also didn't necessarily know all of this because they weren't even necessarily living near each other.
right.
But he talks about how he created the situation where he wasn't going in an office, he wasn't going into a bullpen. He got scripts and they were very, very loose because Todd trusted him. Mm-hmm. And let me look at the art and it's fucking great. So like, why would Todd question it? You keep pumping out great art. I don't give a fuck what you do. Just deliver the art and I'm happy. But he was getting paid a lot and he kept making money and
wow,
Capullo kind of went off the end and he had to kind of rein himself in.
That sounds like
and that's into the 2000s.
Yeah, we'll talk about the 2000s fucking.
But my point is that it didn't necessarily
later.
get cleaned up. Like whether you had an editorial team that was like focusing everything.
Right. And
some of it was because it was literally owned by one person. There's no team. There's no HR. That's like worrying about this stuff. It's all owned by Todd McFarlane.
No, they were all
fucking.
they were all acting crazy, dude. Like because they were a lot of them were really young too, especially in Extreme Studios.
Yeah,
they were really fucking young. Like,
but even Jim Lee and those guys, like they weren't.
I think that's probably why Jim Lee sold Wildstorm to DC. You know, because he probably just like, especially when the market started crashing. I've been watching a lot of stuff on Early Image.
I think that was what it
is. And he was like, "Fuck, I can't do this." Like, and he took it to DC. Like, but he probably saved a lot of people's jobs by doing that because Extreme went away, right? Liefeld, like that's gone. Like, he couldn't
the bottom
pay people
falls out. They would have all of that would have just stopped.
And then we can't forget to talk about like there was some strife. Obviously, you got fucking 7 fucking alphas, dude. You got 7 alphas in one fucking room. Like they're gonna butt heads. Now, you have your Jim Valentino, who's like he's not very like confrontational, right? Yeah. And he's even said like he wasn't super competitive, so he's doing his thing, right? Todd's doing his thing. He's like, I don't want to deal with the drama, but like you got Rob Liefeld in the mix.
Yeah.
And then there was questions of him trying to poach talent from
within
Top Cow.
Yeah.
Right? And that was one of the guidelines. You will not steal talent, or you will not take talent from other studios, right? Michael Turner was the artist, the
late great Michael Turner.
I mean, and I would we'll say this here right now. We're going to cover Michael Turner on this channel. We will do an episode.
He was an interesting guy.
He was, and taken way too soon. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But yeah, so like he was trying to take him. So like. At least that's the story. I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm not going to put that out there in the world that like that's what it is and that's fact. But so there was strife and eventually Rob left.
Yeah.
But yes, like that was just like that those years from 92 and probably until let's say 98 was crazy, dude. Yeah. If you look at the beginning of Image to where it ended up in 98. And I'm capping it at 98 because that's when there was a shift in Image, and we'll do a little bit of coverage on that later on. But it's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
And people can mock me and fucking laugh at me for fucking going back and ordering some old Image 90s books.
Yeah, Nick.
But dude, yeah, Nick, if you're fucking watching, bro. So we talked about the main 7. But what about there's other great books. We had Pit by Del Keown.
Yeah.
The Max by Sam Keith.
Dude,
I just read that for the first time.
You hadn't read it before?
I hadn't read it before. Quarantine helped me. I went back and ordered the singles because I'm like, I'm not going to get the trade. I want to get the singles. Wow. That fucking series was great. I mean, they were getting talent from everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, they also had Mike.
Sam Keith, man.
Yeah, dude. Mike Grell came and did a title. Larry Stroman did a title. I mean, they were getting fucking a lot of people to come. They even had that fabled 1963 book. I don't know if you've heard of that. Alan Moore did it. It was supposed to be like set in 63 of the Image universe. Never finished. Because then they started pulling Alan. I mean, they were taking Alan Moore all over the place.
No, if you look at like even Spawn going into issues 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you start getting Neil Gaiman, you start getting Alan Moore, you start getting these other creators to come in, which they're starting to work with other people to bring them in and start getting involved with the books.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, dude, it was... I
mean, you had Angela miniseries.
Alan Moore wrote a fucking Violator miniseries.
And then Neil Gaiman and Greg Capullo.
But Alan Moore of Watchmen wrote a fucking Violator
Neil Gaiman
miniseries.
wrote an Angela miniseries with Greg Capullo.
Yeah, it's insane, dude. It's just insane. And they were able to lure talent. Like, these creators never saw that kind of money before.
Yeah.
Ever. You know? So, who could blame them? You don't there's no guarantee in comics that you're going to succeed. And if you can capitalize on the window, I can't hate on you for that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you have your family to take care of, and do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's not like they put out bad product. It's not like they want to say they did it for a paycheck, say they did it for a fucking paycheck. Yeah. I don't agree, because I do think that those are probably the better written comics to come out of Image in that time period, where stuff like Neil Gaiman had his hand on. Alan Moore, that issue of Spawned by Frank Miller was fucking sick, you know. Yeah, I can't really talk shit on early '90s Image. Like, some people can hate on it. It's just one of those
things where, like, we admit fully that they're not the best book. Especially look at,
they'll admit,
you compare it to something like that, I don't know, Mark Waid and Chris Samnee worked on. Like, yeah, it's not that. It's not that good.
Yeah, it's not Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips.
No, it's not any of these guys. It's not Greg Rucka and Michael Lark. It's not. But it was a specific time where this was very different and very...
It was also very artist-driven. Let's hit that point.
Well, the whole industry was. That's kind of where this came from.
Right, the industry was artist-driven.
80s into the early 90s was... McFarlane was fucking huge on Spider-Man. Jim Lee was fucking huge with Chris Claremont on X-Men.
Right.
Fucking massive.
Even if you look in the Wizard issues back then, artist was above the writer
100%.
in the solicits because it was so artist-driven. People weren't like, oh, that's a Chris Claremont book. No, that's a Jim Lee book.
That's a Jim Lee book.
You know what I'm saying?
Not, who wrote Amazing Spider-Man 300?
David Michelini.
No,
well, I'm a nerd, so I know that shit. But yes, back then they're like, oh, that's a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man book.
Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, not whoever the hell was writing at that point.
Right.
That's just the way it was. Yeah. And so going into Image, that was the same focal point of these are the main guys, and they're going to keep selling product because they're the ones doing the art.
Right.
Which is why we keep bringing up the same people.
Yeah. I don't know. I love
it. Rob Liefeld, which now we make fun of, but at the time that was the fucking hotness.
Yeah, that was dope.
X-Force,
that was unlike
X-Force.
I know, dude. You know, maybe his proportions were off.
Yeah.
You know,
but
not
X-Force,
hating on it, but he's a lot. I mean, you can't. He's young, dude. Like, he was a young fucking artist, and he was experimental. He was doing a style that you didn't see. You know, so you can't like. You have to respect that part of the game. You know what I'm saying? That he brought something new and fresh.
15 years later, though?
Whether he could draw feet or not.
Hey, 15 years later,
what are you talking about, dude? Like, he can draw feet.
What was that book that came out that long ago?
Go check out Snake Eyes #1 that's coming out.
You know what I mean.
I do, but regardless of what you guys, what anybody wants to say about the early Image books, they are an important part of comic history. They are still fun to read, and I'm mark my words because I'm rereading a lot of them.
It's kind of nuts too to think about where it started, and then you get Image Comics, what it is now, what it's been for the last like 10 years or so.
Right. I mean, and that started in '99. 90, and like I said, like that's why I said
the restructuring of it. But just to think about the idea that like that was the same company, that gave you Saga.
I know it's
years later,
right? But that's because they did see what they needed to do to succeed, and a change in the regime happened. You know, Valentino took over as publisher in '99. Eric Larson took over after him, and then Eric Stevenson, who is now publisher to this day, trained under Jim Valentino, and they continue to push the boundaries of good comics. You know what I'm saying? Like
Vertigo, it's a lot of.
Well, I'm saying they're continuing because Vertigo's
but like
not around.
Image kind of turned into Vertigo, which is kind of what happened.
I mean,
to a degree.
You could say that. I mean, Vertigo was its own thing. I think they had a certain tone under the leadership that they had.
Yeah.
Just like Image, I think Image is a varying tone.
Yeah.
Even though it's under Eric Stevenson, he's guiding the ship.
But
there's no specific tone. Vertigo had a fucking tone
Yeah.
to it, you know? The only difference is like books started, instead of being shopped to Vertigo, were shopped to Image because they got a better deal.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean?
Like
DC's involvement. Maybe there's a whole other conversation. DC's involvement in
well,
paychecks weren't as great in Vertigo as he went along.
Yeah, and you didn't own the IP and stuff, and like, I mean, look, Scalped is a perfect example. You think Jason Aaron doesn't want that book in print? I can't imagine he doesn't.
Yeah.
You could sell that with The Goddamned that just came out last week. Same creative team, but it's not in print.
Yeah.
And who's that to blame? DC.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jason Aaron doesn't want to fucking put it out, but I can't imagine.
I doubt it.
I can't imagine him not wanting it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's safe to say we both love early 90s Image. We will continue to talk about Image on this channel. We're probably going to, I would like to do a little bit of not a deep dive, but maybe we'll look at some of those early Image books. Some specific books, and maybe just like flip through it a little bit and point out what we thought was exciting then, but maybe doesn't work so well
some
now.
Of those dope ass
but
covers.
One thing that will always work is that massive fucking cape of Spawns that will never not be fucking dope to look at. I don't care who the fuck you are.
But even when he was doing Batman, some of the Batman stuff he was doing,
yeah,
with his, like, he had the same kind of Spawn cape.
I know, sick. I know,
love it.
All right,
but anyway,
yeah,
that's enough about it. So yeah, check it out. Like I said, we were talking about more 90s stuff moving forward, and
more
some
90s
interviews that are kind of on topic about
more
this.
90s stuff and more Image stuff. We're gonna continue this story of Image and how they progress, because I think it's important to talk about. I love talking about Image. I love Image. You know, they put out my favorite books on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So
write in the comments if you like what we talked about today. Whatever you remember, what are your favorite comics from the 90s or Image books from the 90s, and other topics. Like, obviously the show is about the random topics, as you probably noticed by now.
Yeah.
But write in what some suggestions.
Yeah, Loungin is always going to be either tied into something that maybe an interview we're doing, tied into a book we're talking about. But we love suggestions, and maybe you guys have a suggestion we haven't even thought of. And we love talking comics, so throw those down in the comments.
Yeah, and so where people want to reach in, where can they go?
Yeah, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. You can follow us at thecomiclounge.com, where we also have links to the YouTube and the podcast. And also have written articles on there, reviews. We've kind of scaled back a little bit, but we're gonna resurge with that stuff again coming up. And you can also, if you want to email us, you can email us at thecomicloungepod, pod, @gmail.com. That's the podcast email, but I also will answer it for the YouTube as well, because we're all one big family, you know, all of us. So on that, just and also fucking don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so that you'll be notified every time we put up a new video, because we are going to be doing this quite frequently. At this rate, we're about 4 videos a week. I'm a fucking machine when it comes to interviewing, so you are. I can't stop. Every time I record one, I talk to 2 other creators about doing one. So I think with that. Yeah, on that note, we're out.